The story kicks off with some guys trying to collect a debt from our main character. Furious, the boy shouts that his parents died mining for them, so if anything, he's the one who should be compensated. Someone then tells him that if he awakens, it would bring hope to everyone, even if the chances are slim to none. The young man yells back, wondering why they don't try it themselves, since the chance of awakening is only 1 in 1,000. Apparently, the experiment leaves him on the brink of death. Dragging himself across the floor, he wonders if this is really where he's going to die. Just then, a bizarre, shadowy creature emerges from the darkness. Without a second thought, the creature lunges forward and strikes him with a fatal blow. He then wonders if this is his fate, all because he's weak, and he questions whoever decided that the weak are the ones who have to die. Lying on the ground, a dark energy begins to envelop him, and that's when our beloved system finally appears. The scene then shifts, and we find out the young man's name is Li Yi. He works as an operator who travels to other dimensions to mine for resources. His supervisor congratulates him on his work that month, telling him he'll finally be able to pay off his parents' debt. Our hero forces a smile and says that if he keeps this up, he might even be able to buy an apartment soon. But on the inside, he's furious and plans to get out of there the second that debt is paid off. It's explained that the radiation in these other dimensions gives you a 1 in 1,000 chance to awaken special powers, but it's also lethal. It's the kind of job nobody would ever choose willingly. Then, 2 men start talking about our protagonist and his parents' story. One of them comments that the company blamed the boy's parents for a huge loss and calls him weak. The other man then says that if it were him, he'd risk it all to make the company pay for what happened. Our hero overhears the entire conversation and is outraged by what he just heard about being weak. He reflects that sometimes someone becomes weak not through their own fault, but because the world itself has gone mad. Arriving at the cave entrance, the supervisor announces that everything is ready and it's time to get to work. Suddenly, the ground starts to shake and one of the miners panics, thinking it's a cave-in. But the supervisor scolds him, saying it's just a minor tremor. The other workers are confused, as they've never heard of tremors here, and wonder if it could be monsters. At that, everyone gets scared, saying the place is too dangerous because it was once inhabited by aliens. With that, the supervisor tells everyone to shut up, stating that the zone was cleared 3 years ago. But before he can finish, a creature emerges and attacks him by surprise. Seeing that, everyone is left completely in shock. And facing that enormous creature, our boy is paralyzed with fear. The supervisor, on the ground and barely conscious, manages to say that it's an alien. Everyone starts running for their lives, and chaos erupts as the monsters begin to attack everyone. Li Yi realizes they are more than 10 kilometers from the dimensional rift's exit. He questions if there's even any point in trying to escape. One of the men is thrown right toward our protagonist, and he gets hit head-on, sending our guy flying hard against a rock. Barely conscious, our protagonist tries to recover. A few miners manage to climb onto a truck and scream for the driver to floor it. Vehicle starts to pull away, leaving Li Yi behind as he begs them to take him along. But a giant creature leaps onto the truck. The 2 men inside start to panic. The creature then demolishes the truck and captures the miners. Li Yi notices that the monsters are focusing their attacks on the people who were in the vehicle. A moment later, the truck explodes in a giant fireball, destroying everything around it. Our protagonist is shocked by the scene and puts a hand on his helmet to shield himself. Amidst the flames, the creatures seem to be in pain and begin to scream in agony. Watching the monsters' reaction, the young man realizes their weakness might be fire. He then glances at some torches on the ground and decides the idea is worth a shot. But another creature suddenly appears to his right, ready to strike with its claws. The young man quickly dodges the monster's attack and rushes to grab one of the torches. He quickly snatches a torch from the ground, and then turns to face the monster. He starts waving the torch at the creature, telling it to get lost. And just as he thought, the creatures are paralyzed with fear in the face of the flames. Seeing this, he shouts for everyone to hear that these monsters are afraid of fire. It's revealed that 10 years ago, portals appeared and insects, beasts, and aliens invaded Earth. Only the advanced awakeners, powered by radiation, had the strength to fight these monsters. The emergence of these heroes allowed humanity to close the portals and explore new energy sources. But these guys are just normal people, and just surviving in this world takes everything they have. With that in mind, the young man yells for everyone to gather as much flammable material as they can find. One of the older workers notices with concern that his torch won't last much longer. So, our hero gets the idea to use the gasoline from the storage depot to block the entrance with fire. He tells everyone to form a circle, back to back, and slowly retreat into the cave. The plan works, and they manage to retreat safely. Once inside, the young man yells for them to pour the gasoline at the entrance as quickly as possible. The other workers quickly start tipping the barrels and spreading gasoline all over the ground. After the gasoline is spread, he orders everyone to throw their torches. One of the torches lands just as a monster was approaching. This creates a massive wall of fire at the cave's entrance, hitting one of the creatures head-on. One of the men approaches and thanks Li Yi for saving everyone. He says that if it weren't for him, they'd all be dead, and they promise to help him if he ever needs anything in the future. Our hero then notices something in the back of the cave, and he points to a giant statue on top of a truck. The old man explains that the statue was found in the mine, and the supervisor was planning to sell it on the black market. Li Yi starts to analyze the statue while one of the workers manages to get a signal on the radio. With that, he reports that they were attacked by aliens in the Sector 7 mine and need reinforcements. But the voice on the radio says that the rescue team will only arrive in about 2 hours, sending everyone into a panic. Desperate, one of the miners asks if they can't come any faster but gets no response. The radio goes silent, and a hush falls over the cave. The desperation grows as their suit's power will only last another hour and a half. Our protagonist stands in silence, staring at his suit's energy gauge. He then realizes they really don't have much time left. Suddenly, one of the men gets everyone's attention and asks them to listen for a second. He claims their power won't last, and in a situation like this, someone needs to sacrifice themselves for the group. So he suggests that the old or the orphans, like our protagonist, should be the ones to be sacrificed. The man approaches Li Yi, saying he has no ties and is deep in debt, so living is just suffering for him. The man then demands the battery from our hero's suit, who is furious at his audacity. He then attacks our boy, mocking his attempt to resist. Down on the ground, the young man is surrounded by the scumbags. They hold him down and take off his helmet, saying the radiation might even awaken his powers. Without his helmet, the young man glares at them and swears that if he awakens, the first thing he'll do is finish them all. One of them laughs at the slim chance of awakening and grabs the battery while our hero coughs helplessly on the ground. With the battery in hand, the group of aggressors now looks for their next victim. Panic spreads, and they begin to sacrifice innocent people. One of the victims starts to run away, and manages to climb into the truck's cabin while the others scream for him to stop immediately. Inside the truck, he yells with a crazed look in his eyes that if he's going to die, then everyone is going to die together. With that, he starts the vehicle and begins driving straight towards the fire barricade, knocking the statue to the ground. With the fire extinguished, the aliens can now enter, and everyone screams in desperation to get out of there. Lying on the ground, our boy wonders why that statue is smiling, and if even it is mocking him. Suddenly, an alien steps on the statue, shattering it. And facing the monster, the young man wonders why he has to go through all of this. On the verge of death, he laments his endless suffering. The monster then strikes him with a direct hit as he questions why he's so weak. In that moment, he has a flashback of all the people who have humiliated him in the past, and he remembers the day he tried to sue the company for his parents' death. One of the men throws the complaint letters in his face. They blamed his parents for the accident and even forced him to pay for the damages, and says he should have just accepted the small compensation, and that the debt is now his, and it will have enormous interest. The man then says the only way to pay it all back is by becoming a dimensional miner. Back in the present, Li Yi grabs the creature's arm, thinking that even if he dies, he won't make it easy for it. And as he bites the monster, he thinks it doesn't matter if he's weak, because no one ever said the weak should just accept death. Despite his determination, the creature throws him away with ease. Completely wounded on the ground, he thinks the smell of that creature is disgusting. A shadowy figure then appears and mocks him, saying his struggle was useless. Even all beaten up, the young man doesn't give in and yells that at least he managed to bite the monster. The figure then says it can save him, but to do so, he must surrender his body. But our hero refuses on the spot, shouting that he'd rather die than be controlled by some freak. The shadowy creature starts laughing in his face, tauntingly asking if he really prefers to die with pride. It then calls him a fool, and the shadow system is forcibly activated. The nearby monster turns around, sensing the dark energy. With his body now possessed by the figure, the young man lunges forward and attacks the alien. He angrily asks if the one who just stepped on his statue was a mere ant like it. He then stomps down hard, saying he's a very vengeful guy. The monster roars in anger, but our hero just stands there calmly. The beast then charges straight for the protagonist, but the protagonist traps the creature with his shadows and with a look of superiority tells it to stay down. With a scream of pain, the creature is thrown hard against the wall. The monster then dissolves, leaving behind a sphere of dark energy. Looking at the shadow on the ground, he comments again on the disgusting smell. Now, he turns to the other workers and calls them trash, while one of them threatens him. The shadow entity then wonders what the pathetic human would do if he gave back control. Trapped by the shadows, the workers beg him to let them go, claiming they just wanted to survive. One of them tries to justify their actions, saying that without them, the boy would never have known he could become an awakened. At this, our hero sarcastically asks if he should be thanking them all now. Relieved, one of the men says there's no need to thank them and asks him to just pretend nothing happened. With a malicious smile, he says he's not going to let them go, and in fact, he's even going to give them a little help. Suddenly, one of his shadows lunges forward and rips off one of the men's helmets. The workers then spit up blood and stare at him in complete terror. The last two survivors beg for their lives, saying they did nothing wrong. He then tosses them the batteries from the men he defeated and says they're theirs now. The shadow entity then appears and tells our hero to stop with this useless pity, and warns him that this pointless mercy will only drag him into more trouble in the future. But the boy tells the entity to shut up, saying he wants to see if the miners are still so tough on the brink of death. As soon as he leaves the cave, our hero comes face to face with an army of aliens. The entity is surprised by so many monsters and gives him two options: fight alone or surrender his body. And it taunts him, telling him to think carefully, because without its power, he's nothing. The young man ignores it and leaps over a monster, yelling that he doesn't need its advice, and he begins to dodge the creature's attacks. He then blocks a monster's attack but is sent flying. The alien then tries to attack our hero from behind. However, the protagonist was ready, and he dodges the creature's attack. He then realizes that his reaction time and speed have improved significantly. The shadow entity taunts him, saying that even with the system, his power is pathetic. Furious, our hero clenches his fists and yells for the creature to shut its mouth, and with one punch, he sends it flying. He wonders why his power suddenly increased so much, but he realizes that with just his body, he won't be able to do enough damage to them. Wishing for a weapon, a dark energy materializes in his hand. From it, a dagger forms, and he wonders if it's made of shadows. With his new weapon, he charges forward to test its power against the monster. And with a swift strike, he easily manages to wound the creature. With a smile on his face, he realizes that now he can kill aliens too. The young man then questions if he has already become an advanced awakened. He then blocks an attack from one of the monsters with his new dagger, and with a quick movement, he slices the creature in half without any trouble. Even surrounded by several aliens, he shows no fear. With that, he shouts that he finally has the power to fight and charges forward. After the battle, he collapses to the ground, exhausted but laughing with joy. Lying amidst the monsters, he was completely wiped out, and the system then notifies him that he has advanced to rank E. The scene then shifts to a hospital, where a doctor explains that the young man is exhausted and needs to adapt to his new level. The nurse is thrilled that he's an advanced awakened, but the doctor tells her to calm down. The doctor then leaves, but the nurse stays to admire him as a mysterious shadow appears by his side. The entity complains about being trapped in a weak human body but finds it interesting that he used its power right from the start. Our hero suddenly wakes up, comes face to face with the shadowy figure again, and asks what it wants with him. It then introduces itself as the ruler of all dimensions and demands that the young man surrender his body to it. The young man scoffs at the creature, calling it an ugly cockroach and saying he would never give his body to it. Annoyed, the entity says his only value is to offer his body and threatens him to obey. Confused, he starts having all sorts of strange thoughts, wondering if the creature has a crush on him. The young man becomes super paranoid, thinking about all the bad things that could happen if he angers the creature. The shadowy figure gets tired of the boy's absurd thoughts and yells at him to stop. It then complains that if the situation weren't so desperate, it would have chosen even an old dog over him. With that, it gives him an ultimatum saying that if he doesn't reach rank D in 3 days, it will erase him from existence. The young man is then teleported to a cave, and the entity explains that it's an insect nest for his test. It's explained that the test can only be done once, and the young man realizes the possession reset his attempt. A giant beetle then emerges. With his dagger in hand, the young man prepares to fight the enormous insect. The creature attacks him with incredible speed, but he manages to defend himself with his dagger. The monster then lets out a terrifying roar. The boy realizes the creature's blind spot is on its back and leaps to attack. But his attack doesn't work, and the dagger ricochets off the beast's hard shell, and he lands on the ground, preparing for the next attack. With that, the beetle seizes the opening and hits him with a powerful blow. Even so, he manages to recover and stabs his dagger into the ground to keep from being thrown back. Facing the monster, he complains that its shell is too hard and his attacks are useless. The entity mocks him, but the young man yells that it's none of its business, and it warns him not to ask for help later. The young man keeps attacking relentlessly, wondering if this beast has any weak points. The creature hits him, sending our boy flying, throwing him forcefully against the cave wall. Lying on the ground, the entity calls him weak as the beetle spits a green goo on him. The beetle roars at him, but the young man realizes the green goo is actually the creature's blood. With a confident smile, he realizes he's finally found the monster's weakness. The creature then charges furiously towards him to attack with all its might. But the young man is unfazed and says he's about to show who the real weakling is here. The shadow entity is surprised to see his eye glowing and wonders if that's the eye of the shadow. With his new power, he manages to break one of the beetle's legs with a single strike. The creature taunts him, but the young man explains that with one less leg, it's much easier to hit its weak spot, and the beetle then begins to retreat. The boy then decides he needs a more effective weapon to finish off the beast. With that, his dagger transforms into a spear, and he says this is exactly what he needed. He then uses his new weapon and strikes the creature in the abdomen, launching the monster into the air, and then lands a direct thrust, revealing that the monster's weak point was its abdomen. Tired, he leans on the spear while the entity taunts him for being exhausted after a single fight. The young man feels a power coming from the crystal on the ground, and the system informs him of his progress toward rank D. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise and senses something approaching but can't see anything. The shadow entity then appears and advises him to use the Eye of the Shadow, but the young man doesn't know what that skill is, and then lands a direct thrust, revealing that the monster's weak point was its abdomen. Then his eye begins to glow with purple energy, and he successfully activates the Eye of the Shadow. With his new vision, he can see another insect shooting poisonous thorns in his direction. The young man then dodges the projectiles with a leap. The thorn embeds itself in the wall, and he realizes it's some kind of wood covered in poison. The young man is surprised by the speed of the attacks and wonders what these things are. But before he can react, he's hit by more thorns in the back. Using all his agility, he manages to dodge another attack at the last second. He gets frustrated for not being able to see them clearly, and the entity explains it's because he's still too weak. Determined, he decides to gather even more energy into his eyes. The shadow creature observes, finding it interesting how a mere rank E can manipulate energy so well. With his power boosted, he can finally see and identify the insects. But suddenly, he notices something strange and tenses up when he sees that number. He remembers a human saying that when you see one cockroach, it means the place is already infested. With that, the horde of insects charges straight at him. The young man then retreats to a better position to avoid being surrounded by the monsters. With his daggers in hand, he prepares to face the insect horde. He releases a wave of dark energy and yells for the monsters to back off. The shadow entity is surprised as he has awakened the second phase of the Eye of the Shadow, and the system notifies him that his Eye of the Shadow has evolved to level 2. With this, his new skills are now Knowledge Base and Shadow Metamorphosis. His new power reveals the insect's weak points with purple flames. He now sees that all the monsters have a weak spot on their bellies. He then uses a new ability and giant shadow spikes erupt from the ground. Absorbing the crystals, he realizes that each insect only gives a small amount of progress. But now that he knows their weak points, he decides to end this quickly. With his insane speed, he defeats the monsters and is amazed by the power of his ability. Suddenly, something attacks him from the side, and the entity mocks that his reaction was fast, but his brain didn't keep up. Even though he was hit, he clearly saw that it was a saber worm that attacked him. To deal with the monster, he transforms his shadow dagger into a whip. With his new weapon, he manages to lasso the creature in midair and says, "Gotcha." He then pulls the monster in and slices it in half. At that moment, the other thorn-shooting insects resume their attack. Seeing the shooter insects, he comments that they really like to throw things. With his whips, he blocks the attacks and challenges them to try shooting without their rears. He then uses his whips to pull the flying monsters down to the ground, and with that, he traps them all with his whips and defeats them in one fell swoop. Watching the fight, the shadow entity thinks that he's finally starting to look worthy of it. It's explained that the Eye of the Shadow enhances his senses, strength, and control over shadows. But the power comes at a price, consuming an immense amount of the user's mental energy. Because of this, his vision starts to get blurry. An insect hits him in the face, and he thinks that he can't fall here after finally getting the power for his revenge. Even wounded, he gets up, determined to continue, and we see there are still 15 hours left in the test. He then remembers the scumbags from the NG group who made him suffer. Angrily, he thinks about how they hid the truth about his parents and forced him to pay a debt. While fighting the insects, he wonders if all of this happened just because he was an ordinary person. But now that he has the power to change everything, he won't give up and swears he will have his revenge. He then promises he will drag every single one of those arrogant bastards to hell. Sitting on a throne of insects, he vows to make them kneel and repent at his parents' graves. The shadow entity comments that human hatred is surprisingly compatible with the shadow system. The entity questions him for releasing all his energy at once, but he just wants to get stronger. In the final second, he decides to bet everything he has to defeat the remaining monsters. He then leaps and unleashes a massive explosion of shadow energy against the insects. With the final attack, he manages to reach 100% and is promoted to level D. Exhausted, he breathes a sigh of relief for having made it just in time. The young man then notices a giant weapon on the ground, and the creature explains it's a level A dagger. Holding the enormous sword, he asks if the entity's people are all giants. The entity boasts that compared to its power, weapons are nothing, but the young man ignores it and absorbs everything. The creature suggests another use for the sword, but the boy decides to sell it, and a portal opens. He then explains that only level D awakeners can sell equipment, and his first stop will be the registration hall. Arriving there, everyone is shocked to find out he was classified as level E. The evaluator explains that although his stats are good, there's no energy fluctuation in his body. The young man is shocked to see that as a level E, he'll only receive a 15% raise in his salary. The entity then explains that humans can't detect shadow energy. With that, the young man thinks that not being detected could be a good thing, but it makes selling equipment difficult. He then decides to go to the black market, a perfect place for the shadow system. Arriving there, two men comment that it's rare to see a miner in that place. The creature scoffs at the human weapons and suddenly feels pity for them for being so weak. One of the vendors tells him to leave, saying he can't afford to pay if he gets anything dirty. The man mocks his appearance and asks what a poor guy like him could possibly buy there. The young man then pulls out the giant sword and tells the vendor to call an appraiser. The vendor is in shock, and someone asks if he's an advanced level D awakened. We see a level D man named Zhou Huo and a woman named Su Qing, who is complaining about the smelly place. With that, the vendor recognizes him as young Master Zhou, and he says he wants to sell a sword to buy a car for his girlfriend. Showing off the Windhowl sword, the vendor is impressed and says it's a top-tier item for a level D. At that moment, our hero recognizes the woman as Su Qing, and she's shocked to see him there. A flashback shows her humiliating him for being an indebted loser and telling him to stop looking for her. Her boyfriend then asks if she knows him, but the woman denies it, saying he must be just a fan. The man then mocks our hero, calling him trash and saying the standards of the place are dropping. He continues with the insults and goes after our protagonist, telling him to take his junk and get lost. Without a second thought, the man lunges forward and attacks our protagonist with his sword. But to his surprise, our boy blocks the attack with ease, and his sword shatters into pieces. Our hero approaches the scumbag and says that his weapon was the real piece of junk. The woman is desperate and asks how that could have happened since the sword was supposed to be super strong. Enraged, the jerk gets up and charges toward our boy. But without any effort, our protagonist dodges and thinks that he's way too slow. Even so, the man tries to attack with his other hand, admitting the young man's skills aren't half bad. With that, the scumbag prepares to attack again, but our boy dodges every single attack. He then reflects that the aggressor's attacks are much slower than the tests in the insect nest. The attacker is confused because he remembers the young man is just a miner who isn't even rank E. Despite being rank D, the man is frustrated that he can't land a single hit. With that, a shadow envelops the attacker's fist, holding him in place. The aggressor then yells that a miner should crawl back to the mine. With a mocking smile, he asks if a dog shouldn't crawl back to the surface. Without wasting any time, he yanks the shadow whip with all his might. With that, the aggressor is pulled violently and completely loses his balance. The woman then runs to help her boyfriend, who is kneeling on the ground, utterly defeated. With a look of superiority, the young man says it seems Mr. Zhou enjoys being a dog. Completely humiliated, the man charges again, yelling if our hero is tired of living. Suddenly, a voice tells everyone to stop, and a group of men appears at the door, surprising everyone. The man, who is Supervisor Wang of rank D, scolds the young master for fighting in his shop. The woman points at our hero and blames him for the fight, claiming he broke her boyfriend's sword. The supervisor is surprised and wonders how a simple miner could have done that. With that, he turns to the young master and asks if his weapon was really broken by that sword. Our protagonist then smiles and says the other guy attacked first, so if the sword broke, it's not his fault. The shop owner then glares at the aggressor and asks if that's true, leaving the young man flustered. The two exchange a knowing glance, and the supervisor says the boy's sword doesn't look ordinary, so they strike a deal. The boss then offers to mediate the situation since the young master trusts him. With that, he asks to take a look at the sword, and our hero hands it over without hesitation. But upon holding the weapon, he's completely shocked by its weight. He then thinks that the sword weighs over 100 pounds and wonders if the young man is an advanced awakened. The man then decides to test him and asks where a simple miner got a weapon like that. Our hero then glares at him and asks, since when the black market cares about the origin of items. The supervisor says it's just curiosity, but inside, the young man realizes he's trying to probe him. He then says he found it while mining, and the shop owner is convinced he's just an ordinary miner. The man then appraises the sword and says it's worth a few hundred at most, while the other one was worth over 2 million. The supervisor then proposes a deal where he buys the boy's sword and the young man pays the rest of the debt. With a fake smile, he says this is his good deed of the day and asks what the other thinks. The aggressor accepts, but the woman complains that the miner has no way to pay the promised 2 million. The man then whispers to her not to worry, as they can sell the boy's organs. Our hero overhears everything and says they seem to have a well-thought-out plan as a henchman glares at him. With his eye glowing, the protagonist says that the one with a problem here isn't just him, and dark energy explodes around him. The boss then orders his henchmen to cripple the boy without hesitation. Seeing the fight start, the supervisor decides to go to the tea room with the couple to wait for the outcome. Suddenly, one of the henchmen is thrown hard against the wall. The shop owner yells at his man to be careful not to break any merchandise. Our protagonist defeats the henchman easily. The aggressor is shocked to see his men being defeated so easily. Angrily, he kicks one of the henchmen. The young man then glares at him with a cold look and says it's his turn now. The man admits the young man's moves aren't bad, but he's no match for an advanced awakened. With that, he charges forward with an energized attack. But our protagonist isn't intimidated. However, our boy just raises his hand and hits him square on, sending him flying. Furious, he yells that not even his own father dared to hit him and prepares a powerful attack to finish the young man. Our hero then uses his dark energy to block the attack at the last second. The aggressor is shocked to see his blow being stopped by an invisible wall. The young man then approaches and says that since his father didn't teach him, he will give him a lesson. He then uses his ability and traps the aggressor and his girlfriend with shadow spider webs. The man yells that he's not a miner and asks if he's a rank C or B awakened. With a mocking smile, the young man says he's just a rank E miner certified by the guild. The man begs him to wait and reveals that he's a member of the Black Panther gang. Our hero then remembers that the Black Panther gang is famous for loan sharking. Without caring about the threats, he attacks the man with a series of punches and kicks. With one final powerful blow, he throws the couple far away. Lying on the ground, the man spits blood, completely defeated and humiliated. With a cold look, our hero says the thing he hates most are loan sharks like them. The supervisor tries to attack the young man from behind, but is easily repelled by our boy. The aggressor then gets desperate and tries to bribe him with 100,000 yuan to leave him alone. The young man then humiliates him and forces him to raise the offer until it reaches 1 million yuan. He then suspends him in the air and says he's going to teach him about interest, and that the slaps were just the beginning. Desperate, the man offers his VIP card with 5 million and swears it's all he has. The young man then notices the card is from the NG group and comes up with a plan to lure out his real enemies. With that, he takes the money and says he's just taking back what was stolen from him. The woman helps her boyfriend up and asks why he didn't tell her the young man was so strong. Angrily, he blames her, saying that if he had known, he wouldn't have let his guard down. He then calls someone and says his money isn't so easy to take. Across the city, we see a mysterious man who appears to be the gang's leader. The aggressor asks for help and lies that someone stole the sword he was going to offer, and even threatened the gang. A man asks his boss what to do with the targets, but the leader says he doesn't see anyone there. With a cruel smile, one of the henchmen uses his energy wires to finish off the targets. The boss says that the young man mentioned by Zhou is now their problem, and it doesn't matter if he lives or dies. Meanwhile, our hero returns to the Awakeners Guild and an employee approaches him. Revealing his face, he says he's an advanced rank E and is looking for a mission for his level. Two men mock him, calling him trash and saying the missions here are for rank D at a minimum. A woman also humiliates him, saying that rank E Awakeners are like parasites who live by begging. Employee tells him to wait outside, and someone says that trash should stick with trash. He checks his phone and sees the loan sharks took the 5 million, thinking he needs a mission urgently. Suddenly, a high-heeled boot catches everyone's attention and the room falls silent. The same people who humiliated him are now scared and surprised by the newcomer's presence. A powerful aura fills the room, and everyone realizes she is a rank B awakened. We see a woman with white hair and fox ears who exudes an intimidating energy. People wonder what a rank B would be doing there, while our hero watches from a distance. With his eye of the shadow, he notes that despite her aura, she looks like a rich girl, and he doesn't sense any killing intent. A man then announces a rank D mission for minors in the Beast's Abyss. People are shocked that the ranky boy wasn't affected by the aura, and even took a step forward. With a confident smile, he realizes he's the only one who can move there. The white-haired woman becomes interested, and the employee tries to offer other awakeners, but she cuts him off and points to our hero, saying she'll take him on the mission. The employee complains that the young man is late and hasn't registered, which is against the rules. With an intimidating glare, the lady says that she is the rules, and the employee gets scared. As they leave, someone comments that it's the first time Miss Chin has chosen someone personally. Once on the mission, a minotaur attacks with ferocity, showcasing the strength of the monsters in that place. We see the team with warriors, support, and damage dealers, a well-balanced group. The team fights against the minotaurs and manages to defend well against the creature's attacks. Watching the fight, he thinks that with a rank B leading, everything seems to be going well. But suddenly, his Eye of the Shadow activates, and he senses something is wrong in the cave. Looking into the abyss, he notices a giant horde of minotaurs that the others haven't seen. The entity explains that his perception is superior, and he thinks the rich girl should have noticed. He wonders if the white-haired lady has already sensed the danger but is hiding it for some reason. One of the team members informs the leader that the crystal vein they're looking for is just ahead. The girl calls him to go with her, and he questions why she would take him to such a dangerous place. As he follows her, he wonders if she doesn't care about the lives of others or if she's just too confident in her own power. Suddenly, the ground trembles, and rocks start to fall, and he tries to warn the girl about the danger. With agility, the two manage to dodge the debris and land safely on the ground. He then stares into the darkness of the cave with a serious expression. A giant rank D minotaur emerges, roaring in front of them, ready to attack. He thinks the rank B is finally going to fight as a pink aura envelops the girl. The lady then draws her sword, and her energy explodes as she prepares for battle. But to everyone's surprise, she looks nervous and starts to break into a cold sweat in front of the monster. The girl then hides behind him and tells the miner to go fight while she provides cover. The lady falls to the ground in embarrassment, and he complains that he's not fighting since she's the rank B here. Desperate and crying, she offers him $1 million to defeat the monsters. Seeing the girl on the ground, he sighs and says he'll only fight because of the money. With a smile, he decides to force himself to fight, and his eyes glow with shadow energy. Then, 2 shadow blades appear in his hands, and he prepares for battle. 3 minotaurs charge at full speed, but our hero is unfazed and challenges them. He then dodges their attacks with agility and prepares to counterattack the creatures. One of the monsters charges toward the girl, and the protagonist gets worried about his wallet. Suddenly, an explosion of red energy protects her and sends the minotaur flying. The young man is surprised and admits he misjudged her, as she has a powerful attack. But another monster takes advantage of the distraction and leaps to attack the lady with an aerial strike. At that moment, our protagonist summons his giant shadow sword to protect her. With a powerful blow, he deflects the creature's attack and throws it to the side. With a smile, he asks Miss Chin if her face attracts the hatred of monsters. The girl panics and runs away, leaving our hero alone with the beasts. He then uses his shadow threads to restrain the minotaurs and calls her a lost cause. Meanwhile, the lady continues to run desperately away from the fight, panting. She stops to catch her breath, thinking she's safe, but a minotaur appears right behind her. The girl is completely panicked upon seeing the giant creature standing in front of her. Staring at the monster, she wonders why the beast isn't afraid of her. Without hesitation, the creature raises its axe in a fury, ready to crush her. Observing the scene, our hero finds it strange, as she clearly has the power to fight. Desperate, the lady screams, and a bracelet on her arm begins to glow intensely. With that, a huge energy shield appears around the lady. The monster is then thrown back violently, and our protagonist watches the scene unfold. But the bracelet on her arm shatters into pieces, and she seems to be in pain. He then realizes that it was a protective amulet and not her real power. The young man approaches and asks if she's a non-combat type awakened. The lady asks him to keep it a secret, but the young man says that'll cost extra. Suddenly, the other minotaurs surround her, and he wonders why they are only attacking her. With that, his level 2 Eye of the Shadow activates to better analyze the situation. He realizes that the support guy is controlling the monsters with his magic flute. A minotaur charges to attack the girl, and she calls out for the protagonist. He cuts the creature down with his sword and complains that this fight seems endless. Surrounded, he thinks he can't use area of effect attacks and will soon be defeated by exhaustion. With a smile, he then comes up with a plan, since the enemy's target is the white-haired girl. At that moment, shadow chains emerge from his feet to hold the monsters in place. He then yells that the girl is defenseless to attract the real enemy's attention. The lady becomes desperate and asks why he revealed her secret out loud. The traitor watches from afar and sees the minotaur slowly approaching the girl. The villain thinks his plan was almost ruined and decides to finish the lady off himself. He then appears behind her and says that if she wants to blame someone, she should blame her ungrateful father. After that, a slash was made, but it was our hero who had appeared to save the girl. The attacker is in shock as he didn't expect a simple miner to be so fast. The girl recognizes him as Ludan, and our hero explains that he was controlling the monsters. Ludan then laughs and admits he was tricked by a miner and let his guard down. With a red aura, he tells them not to think they've already won and prepares to fight. The Minotaurs then begin to be consumed by a red, dark energy. Ludan boasts and says he will show them the true terror of a controller type awakened. The lady is shocked and realizes the villain's aura is that of a rank C, and he's absorbing the monster's energy. The ground then cracks and lava begins to emerge, and she wonders if he's going to evolve a lava minotaur. Our hero is surprised by the power jump and thinks that guy's ability is way too overpowered. And with that, a giant rank C lava minotaur emerges, roaring with its overwhelming strength. The fiery creature charges forward with a powerful punch to finish them both off at once. The young man and the girl join forces and block the blow with the shadow sword. The impact of the attack causes a massive explosion that destroys part of the surrounding cave. Protecting the lady, he thinks that the power of a rank C is too much for the two of them alone. The girl then notices that the young man was injured and has some burns on his face and shoulder. The lava monster prepares to attack again, and the two find themselves in a very difficult situation. The young man then tells her to hold on tight and starts running as if to flee the fight. The lady screams in terror as she sees the attack coming her way, but our hero immobilizes the creature's arms with his shadows. Shadow threads restrain the lava monster, and the girl is surprised that he also has a control ability. He warns that he can't hold the creature for long and tells them to run while they can. The young man then turns to the lady and tells her to run as far as she can as soon as she enters the dungeon. As they run, the girl asks if he's not coming with her and why he's staying behind. He explains that he needs to hold off the monster to give her time to escape safely. With a smile, he tells her to hide well because he'll find her soon. Watching the girl run away, he thinks that after all, she's worth a million to him. The lava minotaur breaks free from the chains and roars, asking where they hid. Our hero then appears on a rock and asks with a smile if the creature is looking for someone. Furious, the lava monster screams and demands to know where Miss Chin is hiding. The creature then attacks him with a powerful swing of its axe to finish him off. The young man challenges it to guess and leaps with his giant sword to attack the monster. With a precise strike, he hits the minotaur dead on. But to his surprise, the attack has no effect, and he's completely shocked. His sword didn't even scratch the monster's rock-like skin, and he can't believe it. The fiery creature mocks the young man, calling him stupid for trying to cut a rock with his blade. Our hero starts running, thinking that the monster's lava field is a bit tricky to deal with. With that, he decides to lure the creature to a more open area while the monster chases him like a rat. The creature then taunts him and asks if running is the only thing he knows how to do. Even so, he activates his Eye of the Shadow because he believes every monster has a weakness. The beast charges forward at full speed and yells that after finishing him, it will go after that woman. Screaming for him to die, the creature launches a powerful fire attack, but the young man manages to dodge. With that, he finally sees the purple flame on the creature's chest and yells that he's found its weak spot. Without wasting any time, he leaps with his giant sword, ready to strike the creature's weakness. With a determined look, he prepares to land the fatal blow on the fire monster. But the creature senses his intention and asks if he thinks it doesn't know what he's planning. The beast then boasts that against absolute power, his tricks are useless and attacks him with everything it has. With the force of the blow, he is thrown against the wall and thinks that this is the power of a rank C. The lava monster advances and challenges him to run to see where he'll hide this time. Even injured, he clenches his fist and thinks he needs to wait for an opening to counterattack. The fiery creature taunts him and asks if he's going to keep trying to attack it with that dagger. The monster says it's useless, and our hero waits for the beast to attack again to get his chance. With that, he yells that now's his chance and seizes the opening to attack the weak spot. His blade strikes the monster's lava core dead on with a precise and powerful blow, but he's shocked because his attack didn't have the effect he expected against the creature. The heat from the core is so intense that not even the shadow energy can completely block it. He then realizes the enemy is smarter than he thought and knows how to protect its weak point. The creature admits the young man discovered its weakness, but it won't do him any good. The monster mocks him and says the core is over 2,000 degrees and offers him a deal. With a smile, he calls it a traitor and says he would never trust someone like it. Furious, the Minotaur yells that he's asking to die and charges at him with full force. The young man dodges the attack, and the creature tells him to stop dodging the fight. He then transforms his dagger into shadow chain blades to counterattack. With his new weapon, he attacks and says the monster is dodging too. Seeing another chance, he splits his weapon into multiple parts to attack, going all out to hit the scumbag's core. But before the attack hits the monster, the intense heat from the core begins to melt his shadow weapon rapidly. The fiery creature laughs and says it's useless, while the young man complains that this is a pain. The creature then attacks him with a powerful blow and yells at him to give up fighting. He realizes his energy consumption is high and thinks about asking the entity for help, but he doesn't want the entity to take over his body, so he leaps to attack again. Besides, if he defeats this rank C, he'll gain a massive amount of experience. With that, he attacks the lava core once more with all his strength and determination. The young man refuses to believe he can't break through the defense and keeps pushing. Screaming in pain, he continues to attack even as the flames burn his body. And with one last shout, he finally manages to shatter the creature's lava core. The creature screams in pain, and the system announces that the Berserker Fury mode has been activated. With that, the monster unleashes an explosion of energy, sending him flying. He is then thrown hard against the cave wall. The monster mocks him for being a mere miner, and the young man realizes its attacks have a burn effect. With a threatening look, the lava creature says this is the end of the line for the young man. Suddenly, he feels something strange happening inside his body, and a much more powerful dark energy begins to flow from him. The shadow entity explains that this power was always with him, but his body couldn't handle it. The system notifies him of his awakening, and he realizes the new energy is healing his wounds. The lava creature is shocked to see him recover so quickly and his aura becoming more sinister. Angrily, the monster decides it can't give him any more time and charges forward to attack. But the young man dodges the fire attack with incredible speed, leaving the creature surprised. The monster is shocked that even with its speed tripled, the young man can keep up. The creature wonders how a simple rank E can be so strong and becomes furious with the situation. With that, it decides to flood the area with lava to see where the young man can run now. A giant wave of lava rushes toward the young man to surround him and end the fight. The fire monster then yells for the lava to burn him until he turns to ash. But suddenly, the creature becomes confused. Surrounded by lava, he wonders just how strong his shadow enhancement can get. With a mocking smile, he then taunts the fiery creature, saying the heat is too low. The monster is in shock and can't believe what it's seeing, as the young man says it seemed to be having fun before. With his shadow blade in hand, the young man says with a serious look that it's his turn now. Without wasting any time, he charges straight towards the lava minotaur. He then leaps and with his two shadow blades spins in the air to attack the creature. With that, the system notifies him that his defense, strength, and speed have been increased by 200%. The fiery creature screams in pain and realizes its hand was injured by the young man's attack. Furious, the monster calls him a brat and can't believe it was wounded by a simple miner. But the young man is unfazed and with his daggers in hand prepares for the next attack. He then realizes that with the enhancement, he can even launch long-range attacks. Despite being hit, the fire monster begins to regenerate using the lava around it. The creature boasts that it can regenerate infinitely and that his attacks are useless. The young man then smiles and wonders if that infinite regeneration is really true. With his eye of the shadow, he notices that the monster's energy is actually weakening. The fire monster challenges him to try again if he's so sure of his victory. With that, the young man attacks the creature relentlessly with his shadow blades. The creature then starts to feel weak and wonders what's happening to its body. Our hero explains that its energy is at its limit and tells it to surrender right now. The man then tries to make a deal, saying there's no reason for him to fight like this. Desperate, he offers 5 million for the young man to hand over the girl and leave him in peace. The young man then taunts him, asking if he won't go back on his word later. The man swears he's not a traitor, but the young man doesn't believe a single word he says. With a smile, he says he just remembered something important at that moment. Our hero explains that if he hands over a traitor to the girl's father, he'll gain a huge favor. The man becomes desperate and thinks that if he falls into her father's hands, he's done for. With no other choice, he then holds up a blue crystal and yells for the young man not to blame him. The shadow entity is shocked and wonders why the man has a fragment of the otherworld gate. With that, she explains that if that crystal is destroyed, everyone will be trapped here forever. The man laughs and says he was forced to do this as he holds the crystal with a malicious smile. But to the monster's surprise, our hero snatches the crystal from its hand in the blink of an eye. He then yells for the creature to die as he attacks the lava core with his shadow blade. The minotaur then screams in pain as it's struck, and after that, several shadow spears emerge and pierce the scumbag. The monster then falls defeated to the ground, and a sphere of energy floats from its lifeless body. He then realizes it was the energy core, and his eye of the shadow evolves to the supreme level. But suddenly, the ground begins to shake, and the entire cave sways from side to side. The entity explains that the abyss is collapsing without the Minotaur's energy to sustain it. Once outside, the girl invites him to join her faction, praising his strength, which is above that of a rank E. The young man refuses the offer for now, and asks her to keep his powers a secret for his own safety. The lady agrees and hands over the 1 million she promised, and he thanks her for the money. He then summons his giant sword and asks if Longman Street also buys items like that. The girl analyzes the weapon and says the material is special and that she'll take it to be appraised. As he says goodbye, he thinks that if she knows about weapons, he could sell his equipment through her. But he also considers that she might trick him, but at least he's already made 1 million either way. Back in his room, he analyzes the crystal, and the entity says that with more of them, it can make him reach rank S. The young man becomes thoughtful at the idea of becoming one of the most powerful awakeners in existence. The entity thinks that the otherworld gate might be active and that it needs to recover soon. She also reflects that one day they will fight beings of another level and questions whether she should tell him everything. But the creature decides it's too soon and that it's best to let the young man get stronger first. Elsewhere, we see that the NG group's rank E rift was sealed due to a mining accident. The young man watches from a distance, thinking that with his current strength, there's no way to uncover the truth of that place. With a determined look, he reveals that this place holds the truth about his parents' death. We see a flashback where a man offers 200,000 as compensation and asks him to sign a waiver. With a mocking smile, the man asks if the young man thinks the compensation amount is too little. But the young man doesn't want the money and with a sad look says he just wants to know the truth of what happened. The man then grabs him angrily and yells that his parents died in an accident with the other miners. Outraged, the young man yells that it's impossible, as his parents were rank C, and that they must still be alive. Then a security guard holds him back, and the man says that anything can happen in a rift, no matter the rank. The young man struggles and shouts that the monsters there were weak, and his parents would have been able to escape safely. The security guard accuses him of just trying to squeeze more money out of the company with his drama. With a furious look, the guard raises his fist and says the boy is asking for a beating. Suddenly, a man arrives and stops the assault, revealing himself as the head of the NG group, a rank B awakened. The boss then scolds his subordinate and asks if that's the proper way to console the families. He then sits down and offers the money, but the young man insists he just wants to know the truth. With that, the man promises a full investigation and that the truth about his parents would be revealed. But instead, his parents were accused of theft, and he was forced to pay a huge compensation. The entity tells him to stop lamenting and go find more fragments to get stronger. The young man thinks that if his energy weren't undetectable, he wouldn't be in this situation as a minor. He also wonders if the entity is good or evil, and if the promise of rank S was just a delusion. The creature gets angry and says it only helps him because it sees talent in him, leaving the young man even more confused. At that moment, he receives a notification on his phone and sees that it's an invitation for a new mission. Arriving at the rift entrance, a man asks why he took so long to show up. An older man recognizes him and calls him by his name, and the young man greets him as Uncle Hao. The uncle comments that he's grown a lot and that it's been 5 years since his parents' accident. One of the mercenaries complains that they were expecting someone important, not just some random miner for the mission. The official then explains that the mission is in a rank D rift to extract 60 kilograms of ore. Our hero finds it strange that they're taking 4 rank C awakeners for such a simple and easy task. He senses hostility from the group and also the presence of another rank C hiding nearby. From a distance, a red-haired man watches everything on his phone and says his toys have arrived. With a malicious smile, he reveals himself as the Blood Panther and announces that the hunt is about to begin. Once inside the rift, Uncle Hao asks if he needs a suit, but the young man declines the offer. The mercenaries then mock him and call him the king of trash for being just a simple miner. The uncle asks him not to provoke the men, but the young man tells him not to worry about it. With a keen eye, he notices that the local vegetation seems to have been arranged to hide something. As they walk, he continues to feel a deadly and dangerous presence approaching them. Suddenly, he stops and senses that the enemy can no longer hold back and is ready to attack. He notices that the other rank C has also sensed the danger and wonders if he's just observing. One of the mercenaries yells at him to walk faster, and Uncle Hao says they'll pick up the pace. With that, he comes up with a plan to use the environment to throw them off so he can investigate everything in secret. He then tells his uncle to hold on and starts running at high speed through the forest. The mercenaries are shocked, as they didn't expect a simple miner to be so fast. One of them yells for them to stop, but the leader says to ignore it, as separating from the group is suicide. From a treetop, the Blood Panther observes and wonders if they sense the danger nearby. With a smile, he thinks the game would be too boring if everyone was as stupid as those 3. One of the men says he feels like he's being watched, but the boss calls him paranoid, saying it's just a rank D mission. Another agrees, saying he also feels a strange chill in the air as a leaf slowly falls. The third then suggests they go back, but the leader scolds him and tells him to stop panicking. Suddenly, the leader's eyes widen as he realizes something is very wrong with this place. With that, his 2 companions get spooked and jump back, preparing for a possible fight. The Blood Panther appears behind one of them and traps him with red threads, and the man recognizes him instantly. The leader tells him to release his brother, and the villain laughs, saying they've provoked his gang multiple times. Without mercy, the Blood Panther uses his threads to attack the man with several fatal cuts. The other 2 mercenaries are completely shocked to see their brother defeated so easily. Furious, the second brother screams and charges into the fight, but the leader tries to stop him from doing something reckless. But the villain's red threads easily stop the mercenary's punch. The villain then mocks the man and asks if he thinks he's qualified to fight. With no chance to defend himself, the red threads slice the mercenary into several pieces. Terrified, the last mercenary can only call the villain a monster. The villain laughs and says that scared prey is the best kind, as the man flees, screaming for help. Meanwhile, our hero and his uncle are resting, and the older man asks why he abandoned them. The young man then asks if his uncle has offended any powerful factions recently. With a serious look, he reveals that this mission is a trap for all of them. Suddenly, the last mercenary appears, and the young man asks his uncle to tell him everything he knows. Furious, the mercenary accuses him of knowing about the danger and not warning them. The young man then says he's not useless because he led him straight to the mastermind of the plan. With his eyes glowing, he says the mercenary is about to meet a tragic end. Without him noticing, the red threads trap him and the Blood Panther watches from a distance. The villain then says he didn't expect a simple miner to be so interesting. Our hero then activates his supreme eye of the shadow and faces the villain head-on. Uncle Hao then kneels and begs the Blood Panther to spare their lives there, but the villain reveals that the uncle let a secret slip, and that's how he found out everything. Desperate, Uncle Hao swears he'll take the secret to his grave and won't tell a soul. With a malicious smile, the villain prepares to attack, and our hero yells for his uncle. He then attacks him and says the only people who keep secrets are the ones who are no longer alive. Seeing his uncle defeated, The young man becomes furious and calls the villain a bastard. Without wasting any time, he summons his shadow blades and charges at the enemy. The villain blocks the blow and is surprised that a minor has fighting skills. With a smile, he says those skills only work against weak guys like Zhou Ting. With that, he launches an attack that shatters the ground, and the young man dodges with a backflip. The villain taunts him, and the young man activates his shadow enhancement to go all out. The two then exchange several high-speed blows, their blades clashing. Even with his enhancement, the young man realizes he can't block all the attacks. The villain calls him distracted and seizes the opening to land a powerful blow. With the force of the impact, our hero is sent flying and is left vulnerable. Uncle Hao tries to help, but the young man tells him to fall back, thinking he needs to change his tactics. With a sinister smile, the villain says there's no use panicking, as they're both going to meet their end there. But the young man activates his supreme eye of the shadow and says the fight isn't over yet. With that, he transforms his energy into shadow daggers and throws them at the enemy. But the villain's red threads block everything, and he asks if that's all the young man can do. The young man then replies that there's more and leaps for an aerial attack with his dagger. The Blood Panther admits the minor has a lot of tricks, but it won't do him any good. He easily blocks the blow and says our hero is just a simple rank E. Suddenly, the bald mercenary erupts from the ground and yells for the Blood Panther to die. He then transforms into a creature and traps the villain, saying this is his weakness. But the villain just smiles and says that close quarters combat is his specialty. The mercenary is completely shocked, as he didn't expect that reaction from the enemy. With that, the Blood Panther uses his threads to finish off the mercenary once and for all. Our hero is surprised to see the rank C defeated so easily. He then tells his uncle that they need to run, as the enemy is much stronger than him. The villain then scoffs at them and asks with a smile if they really think they can escape. In hiding, the young man treats his uncle's wounds, but the older man tells him to run alone and leave him behind. The young man then asks what his uncle did to make the Blood Panther want him dead so badly. With that, Uncle Hao reveals that he thinks he discovered the truth about the death of the boy's parents. The protagonist is completely shocked by the revelation and can hardly believe what he just heard. With his eyes glowing purple, he becomes furious and glares at his uncle with a serious look. He then grabs the older man and demands that he tell him everything he knows about the case right now. The uncle explains that the villain's pursuit confirms that there's something wrong with Kuishi Hao. He says the young man's father suspected experiments, and soon after, they were framed for theft. Furious, the young man asks why he didn't say anything about it back then to help. Scared, the uncle explains that he was just a minor and couldn't risk losing his job. Disappointed, he pushes his uncle and accuses him of letting his parents suffer a great injustice. The older man admits that guilt made him drink and he accidentally revealed the secret to someone. Suddenly, red threads appear and attack Uncle Hao as the villain watches from afar. The protagonist watches the scene completely in shock, unable to do anything to stop it. The young man screams his uncle's name as he sees him being caught by the villain's red threads. With a sad smile, Uncle Hao apologizes for being weak and cowardly in the past. In his last words, he asks the young man not to hold a grudge against him for his choices. The villain then realizes the boy is the son of those two rank Cs and understands everything. With a leap, he says he's going to send the young man to meet his parents, but the young man refuses. With that, the two exchange fierce blows and the shadow blades and threads clash in the air. The young man defends himself with his giant sword but still ends up with some cuts. The Blood Panther taunts him, asking if he doesn't find it exciting to see his own body wounded. Angrily, the protagonist says the villain's spiderweb isn't invincible and prepares himself. He realizes the enemy's defense is weaker at the moment of attack and comes up with a plan. Yelling to break through, the young man trades a blow and hits the villain's chest with his sword. The impact sends both of them flying, but the protagonist managed to injure the enemy. The Blood Panther gets annoyed and calls him a ruthless kid for trading injuries. Leaning on his sword, he wonders if he has reached his limit in this fight. Seeing the young man's condition, the villain realizes he was bluffing and that he got a scare. Even wounded, he remains standing, but several cuts suddenly appear on his body. The villain admits that if the young man weren't rank E, he'd be done for, and pulls him in with his threads. With that, our hero is suspended in the air, and the villain challenges him to finish him off now. The Blood Panther then approaches and asks if he's still trying to intimidate him with his glare. With a malicious laugh, he admits he gets excited seeing the young man's look of anger and helplessness. To increase the young man's suffering even more, he says he's going to tell him an important secret. The villain then reveals that his uncle was right, and that his parents didn't die in an accident. With a monstrous smile, he yells that it was actually him who finished them both off that day. He then says the boy's father made the same face when he ended his mother's life. The villain laughs as he recounts the details, but a dark aura begins to emanate from the young man's body. Suddenly, the Blood Panther gets confused as his threads are being burned away by the purple energy. With that, an explosion of power sends the villain flying, and he calls the young man a demon. Our hero then stands up, enveloped in a much more powerful and menacing dark aura. With a look full of hatred, he glares at the villain and swears he will finish him off once and for all. The entity then realizes the boy's hatred can be used to stimulate the shadow energy. The system announces that his shadow energy has increased. His enhancement has leveled up to 2, and he has awakened the Shadow Leap ability. The Blood Panther is shocked to see the young man's wounds healing on their own and wonders if the boy has healing abilities. The villain then smiles and says the prey only gets interesting when it fights on the brink of death and attacks the young man with his red threads once more. But our hero dodges the threads with a smile and asks if he's really referring to to him, now full of confidence with his new power. He then uses his new ability and appears behind the enemy in the blink of an eye, and with a threatening look says that in the shadows the villain is the prey. The Blood Panther is startled and doesn't understand how the boy's strength increased so much, and the protagonist comments that the enemy's speed is fast. The two trade blows, and the villain says that even with that speed, it won't be enough, and he believes the young man still can't defeat him. The young man then leaps back and launches a swarm of shadow daggers at the enemy, yelling for the villain to try and defend against that attack. The Blood Panther uses his threads to block all the daggers with ease, and with a smile says that move is useless against him. Our hero then asks if the villain is sure and teleports to one of his daggers, appearing right in front of the enemy to attack with everything he's got. With a determined look, he asks what the Blood Panther thinks of that new move, and the young man is ready for a surprise attack. The villain blocks the blow and mocks the young man, saying his toy knives are useless, and claims his defense cannot be broken. The Blood Panther continues to hold off the attack, looking very confident in his victory, not believing a rank E could be a real threat. The young man then smiles and asks who said he was trying to break his defense, revealing that his real plan was something else from the start. He explains that the enemy can't attack and defend at the same time with his threads, and that the villain's weakness is his slower reaction time. With his new speed, he creates several clones and attacks the villain from all sides at once. The Blood Panther is shocked by the boy's power and can't believe he's being defeated. Kneeling and wounded, the villain wonders how he could lose to a simple miner like that. The protagonist then points his blade at him and demands to know the truth about the accident. With a malicious smile, the enemy tries to provoke him and starts talking about his mother, but our hero doesn't fall for the provocation and with a quick strike, puts an end to his games. The villain screams in pain and realizes the young man ripped off a part of his body with the blade. As the Blood Panther screams on the ground, the young man watches him with a cold, emotionless gaze. With his eyes glowing, he warns that his patience has its limits, and he wants the answers now. The villain then reveals that Kuishihao ordered him to finish off his parents after they discovered his experiments. Hearing the name of the NG group's boss, the young man's fury intensifies and he glares at the enemy. The Blood Panther tries to mock him, asking if the boy is scared now that he knows everything. With a smile, he says the young man should just let him go if he doesn't want any more trouble. But the protagonist swears he won't let any of his parents' murderers get away. With a determined look, he goes to the NG Group headquarters in the rain, ready for his revenge. He then watches from a distance as the NG Group's boss, Kui Shihao, gets out of his car with a bodyguard. The entity warns him that even though he's rank C now, he shouldn't recklessly seek death. With that, the creature explains that he should be able to sense the presence of a powerful rank A nearby. The young man says he knows and runs after the car, while the entity reveals that the rank A is also there. He then thinks that he won't be reckless and won't attack Kui Shihao at that moment. Leaping across buildings, he reflects that he can't fully trust the Blood Panther's words. He needs to find out if the order came only from the boss or if the entire NG group was involved in the plan. He hopes the rank A isn't involved, otherwise a blood debt will be paid with blood. He follows the car and wonders what the boss is doing at the Blood Panther's gang warehouse. Inside, a muscular man tells everyone to be careful with the experimental equipment. Kuishihao then asks the man if the old miner Hao Wu is already dead. The man explains that the Blood Panther has disappeared, so they can't confirm Hao Wu's death. The boss gets furious, and the man says the villain must have underestimated his opponent on that mission. He then orders them to move the equipment quickly, as the experiment is in a very critical phase. In hiding, the young man hears the boss ask if the money for the deal is ready. With his eyes glowing purple, he confirms that Kui Shihao was the culprit all along. Suddenly, the muscular man senses a strange presence and looks back suspiciously. With a powerful attack, he destroys the area and yells, asking who is hiding there. The boss then asks what happened, and the man says he felt a murderous intent nearby. In hiding, the young man thinks that was a close call, and that his rank C strength is still not enough. At another time, we see the large building of the Qin Group, a powerful and influential company. The entity then asks why he isn't looking for missions as usual. The young man explains he's there to find the third fragment and get his giant weapon appraised. A receptionist then approaches and politely asks if she can help him with anything. He says he's looking for Qin Xian, but the lady asks if he has an appointment. Suddenly, a woman accuses him of being a poor miner, and he recognizes her instantly. She then asks young Master Qin to kick the young man out, as he was causing a disturbance. Surrounded by guards, he asks if this is how they treat their visitors. Young Master Qin scoffs at him and says a poor guy like him isn't even fit to be a dog. With a serious look, he thinks the Qin family is arrogant and decides he no longer needs to speak with the girl. He turns to leave, but young Master Qin says he's not going anywhere. With a malicious smile, the green-haired young man orders his guards to finish off the intruder. Using his shadow leap, our hero defeats the guards and grabs the young master by the neck. The woman then threatens him, telling him to let the young man go or the Qin family will get their revenge. Losing his patience, the young man calls her noisy and throws her away with a single blow. He then releases the young man and says he only let him go because of Qin Xian and no one else. Furious, the young master is engulfed in flames and asks who the protagonist thinks he is. He then charges forward with his flaming fists and yells that he's going to finish the young man right now. With serious looks, the two face each other and prepare for the confrontation that is about to happen. But suddenly, a man in a mask appears and blocks the young master's attack at the last second. A white-haired lady appears and accuses him of having a lot of nerve to cause trouble there. She then orders them to take the guards and her cousin outside, leaving the green-haired young man shocked. He complains that she's going easy on him and says she should have finished off the intruder for good. At that moment, the man in the mask grabs the girl's cousin by the collar forcefully. The young man is confused and asks what his cousin is doing, as he is her family. The woman in the red dress tries to defend her boyfriend, saying he was just defending her honor, but the white-haired girl defends him, saying he is her friend, leaving the other woman shocked. With that, she orders the guards to take everyone outside and says to never hire them again. The woman is then dragged away, screaming desperately for help from young Master Chin. The lady then warns her cousin not to use the family name to deceive others again. After resolving the commotion, she invites him in and says she wasn't expecting his visit. She apologizes for the embarrassment, but the young man says every family has relatives like that. Suddenly, an assistant arrives and informs her that President Chin wants to see her immediately. She then apologizes and tells him to wait a bit, as she'll be right back. He asks if it's something important, but the assistant says the order was for her to go at once. Alone in the room, he suddenly feels a powerful energy and a golden glow surprises him. An older man appears out of nowhere in front of him and glares at him with a serious and intimidating look. With his eye of the shadow, he analyzes the man and discovers he is a rank A awakened. He is surprised to see that the man has two powerful, high-level abilities. Our hero tries to play it cool, saying he's just a minor, while thinking that the mental attack is strong. The older man is surprised that his fear ability didn't work and doubts that he's a minor. With that, he attacks the young man with a powerful thunder strike to test his true strength. Despite the force of the attack, the protagonist manages to defend himself and suffers no serious injuries. The white-haired man is even more shocked to see that the young man managed to withstand his power. He then says that to withstand that blow, the young man must have at least the strength of a rank B. With a serious look, he demands to know why the young man is approaching his daughter like that. Suddenly, the girl returns and pulls her father's ear, accusing him of interrogating him on purpose. Furious, she yells for him to leave and stop harassing her friend, while the young man watches the scene. Our hero then realizes that this man is the famous Qin Xiao Shang, the head of Longmen Street. The lady apologizes for her father's behavior, but he says he understands his concern. She then asks how he knows her father so well, and he gets a little flustered to answer. The young man then hears her father's thoughts, who is worried about his daughter's safety. The girl becomes furious and yells for her father to get out of there, and we see him flying out of the building. She then hands him a card with a 5 million deposit for the young man's giant sword, but he says he came for another reason and shows the blue crystal, asking where he can find more. The girl explains that those fragments used to be common, but someone has been buying them in bulk in recent years. With that, she suggests he try his luck at the Longman Street auction, and the young man thanks her for the tip. The entity then wonders if this has anything to do with the NG group and that someone is collecting the items.